So today's video is pretty special to me because it finally kicks off just a mountain of audio content that I've been working on throughout the summer and fall. It only seemed right to start with the DT 1990 Pro. Priced at $599 US, this headphone's been described to me as the best dynamic headphone available under $1,000. And based on what I've been hearing, it really doesn't seem like that outlandish of a claim. This marks the first time for a headphone that I've taken one for review on loan and then contacted the manufacturer, debit card in hand, to find out how much it would cost me to retain it. And I have a ton of headphones here now. It's just that good. You ready? Let's go. This video is brought to you by Bookmark.com. Bookmark's a free website builder where you can create a professional-looking website with hosting in just a couple minutes by answering 7 simple questions. Bookmark's AI engine, Ada, literally builds your website right in front of your face in less than 2 minutes, and you can edit virtually every aspect of the page once it's complete. You can also upgrade to connect your existing domain and create an online store with e-commerce integration. It's awesome. Click the link in the description below or check them out at Bookmark.com. Yo, I'm Brian P. You're watching BadSeed Tech, and today we're checking out the highly regarded DT 1990 Pro from Beyerdynamic. I give up. I'm just going to start saying Beyerdynamic. For transparency, they did send these out for review and ultimately allowed me to retain them, but as you should know by now, doesn't affect my review in any way. So the DT 1990 Pro is an open-back, dynamic, professional studio headphone. But what makes it so special is that it's also just really enjoyable to listen to. It's not dry or shrill or analytic to the point of not being fun. It just does everything really well. We'll dig into that way deeper a bit later. Build quality and construction on these is impeccable. It's the classic Beyerdynamic shape and design, but these, like the 1770 and 177X, are mostly all metal. They feel weighty and premium and like you could break a padlock with them. And like almost all of Beyer's offerings, almost every part of these are replaceable to allow you to make repairs should you ever need to. The headband has a good bit of padding, feels really premium. I do have opposing info as to whether or not it's real versus synthetic leather, but the fact that I really can't call it should say quite a bit. The stitching is flawless, logos and branding are muted, ear cups are metal with milled holes revealing like a tight metal mesh behind it, and the logo is in a tasteful chrome. These are understated and elegant. They are an absolute work of art. They're not light at around 370 grams, but they are well balanced, and the pads wear well for me even with glasses. The 1990 comes packaged in a hard case with a zipper pouch for cables and 2 cable options, a 3-meter straight cable or a coiled cable. Both have their own 1/4-inch adapters included as well, and you get 2 different sets of pads here, both velour. One balanced with lots of holes and one analytic with way less holes. These are their 45mm Tesla drivers, 250 ohms, 102 dB sensitivity, which means you can drive these with a lot of things, but I don't recommend it. This is a pro-level headphone, and I would expect that if you were looking at these, you had some other mid to high-tier gear laying around. Samsung Note 9 is not going to cut it. There's just not enough volume there. iPhone 11 will give you plenty of volume, but the dynamics aren't really there. It just doesn't sound its best. A lot of people think that adding a headphone amp simply means more volume, but that's not always the case. In certain headphones, it can really help them open up and sound their best. We'll be talking a lot more about that in a future video. The JDS Atom will drive these, the Ship Magni 3 will drive them, but they scale really well with higher end setups. I did the majority of the testing on the SU8 THX 789 stack, which is very clean, and Tidal Hi-Fi was the source in all cases. Let's jump right into sound here. I'm going to be dishing out some pretty high praise, so I think it's important for me to frame my particular taste for you before we move forward. I listen to a pretty wide range of music, so it's easier for me to tell you what I don't listen to, which is like folk, country, jazz, classical. Everything else is fair game. I like my music to sound warm, I like bottom end, I prefer an open soundstage, and I'm pretty sensitive to highs that are too pronounced. If you make me choose between fun and analytic, I'm gonna choose fun every time. So that's it, that's me. Now let's talk about what these are, and we'll address the elephant in the room first. If you've researched these headphones and watched other reviews, and you should, you've likely seen the measurements and that pretty insane spike at 8K, right in that zone to deliver sibilance or that grainy harshness you hear in the highs on certain headphones. I'm gonna tell you flat out right now, I do not perceive that on these headphones when I'm using the balanced pads, which is what ships on the headphone. Doesn't bother me at all. Now, on the analytic pads, it becomes apparent. Not on the same level as like the DT 990, which shares that same spike. Speaking in a very specific way, the 1990 with the analytic pads becomes borderline uncomfortable for me on certain tracks, versus the 990 that is decidedly uncomfortable for me on the vast majority of tracks. The 990 to me often sounds thin overall and too pronounced on the highs, which arguably makes a great gaming headphone, but I find myself turning the 990 up louder to get the bass and the mids to fill out. That of course also causes the highs to raise in volume along with everything else that comes with them. The other thing the analytic pads do for me is they let the mids breathe a bit, bring some additional clarity there. Sacrifices a bit of bass to do this. The balance pads add warmth by boosting the upper bass and the low mids, but the upper mids become slightly recessed in the process, which I don't mind. Given the choice between the two pads, I'm going to always go with the balanced pads, and I don't ever feel the need to EQ this headphone regardless of what I'm listening to. So the overall sound for me with the 1990 is warm and incredibly detailed. Bass is very rich with both punch and sustain, but not quite at the level of the 17.7X. So no sub bass, no rumble, but still more than enough to bring some energy and fill things out. And I wouldn't expect an open back headphone to do sub bass. That's the trade-off when you go from closed to open, is that you're giving away that low bass. In exchange, you're getting a wider, open, airier feel out of the headphone. And this is big. It's not wide. It's not like K7XX wide, maybe not even 990 wide, but it still feels large and open. And the imaging here is excellent. Now for all the praise, what these won't do is replace something like a 6 Series Sennheiser headphone. If that's what you're really into, the 6 Series is known for doing excellent separation and very intimate vocals, like right up against your ears with the mids. They do replace the 6XX for me because that mid boost isn't really something I look for. My biggest complaint with that headphone is that it seems to lack the low end energy to make my music feel exciting to me. The 1990 works really well for gaming too. Everything that makes them sound great, the detail, the imaging, the soundstage, the ability to layer sounds, really adds up to a very capable gaming headphone. If I was going to go die-hard competitive FPS with these, I'd probably run the analytic pads for maximum detail, clarity, and that high-end focus. Of course, you probably wouldn't pay $600 just for a gaming headphone. It should go without saying based on their application, but they're an excellent studio headphone. If there's an issue with your vocal, you're gonna hear it. Problem with your mix, you're gonna hear it. Using these for the past 2 months has helped me dial in specific areas of opportunity I had in vocals in my videos. Stuff like dialing in and mitigating specific room tone noise, making adjustments to fight reverb in my space, and working on mic positioning to minimize sibilance at the point of recording instead of attempting to de-ess later. All of this has been hugely helpful. And that brings us into value. Obviously, $599 is not an insignificant amount of money for the majority of people out there. I'm just gonna start this with a factual statement. I used to have several different pairs of headphones at my main desk, all for different applications, very specific applications. Now I have 3. The GSP 670, which I use for wireless, social gaming, and Discord, the 17.7X, and the 1990. That's it. That's the whole lineup, and I generally only use the 17.7X in times when I need isolation because the city outside is noisy or I'm trying not to disturb someone in here. These do have some clamping force at first, and I do get to the point where I need to adjust the headband forward or back a bit after a couple hours, but on any given day, I wear these at least 4 to 6 hours a day. If I can get that much versatility out of a headphone, gaming, production, which is how I earn a living, and it still does it for me for music listening, well, that's an investment, and the way these are built, likely a long-term one. If you already have or are aspiring to get a decent DAC amp setup, and we'll be talking all about that very soon, these are such an easy recommend for me. One limitation to be aware of is that they use a 3-pin mini XLR connection, so these are not compatible with balanced setups without modding the headphone. And we'll be talking all about what balanced is and what it isn't very soon as well. The 17.7X is actually a very attractive option if you need the isolation of a closed back set, don't mind trading some soundstage in exchange for more intimate detail, want to drive an audiophile headphone off literally almost anything out there, including your laptop or your motherboard, at only 32 ohms. It's even more versatile than the 1990, and it comes with 4-pin mini XLR that you can run balanced as well. It is on drop, it's a drop collab, but it's manufactured in Germany in Beyer's factory, and it shares that same build quality. I'll link to that video at the end of this one. Shameless self-promotion aside, it's really worth a look. The 17.7X, which again doesn't need an amp, will run you $450. Doesn't come with a case, it has only one cable, but 2 pad options, one of which is a Dakoni sheepskin pair. The 1990 runs $599, but it does go on sale often on a certain online retailer, especially this time of year. I do finally have a DT880 arriving soon, which we'll be taking a look at shortly. I'm going to compare it directly to the 1990 because word through the grapevine is that headphone is a vastly more budget-friendly version of the sound profile that we hear on the 1990. Because people are going to ask, is it a worth it upgrade from a DT990? For me, if you have the budget, It's an easy yes. This headphone addresses every issue I have with that headphone. I do have a few more pair of headphones hovering right around this price range to compare these two, which we'll be taking a look at in a few weeks. Some planars, some E-stats, and some other high-end dynamics as well. Links to everything we talked about today down in the description. As always, any questions, hit me. Actually, you know what? Don't hit me in the comments. Come by the Discord if you have audio questions. We have a great community over there. And that's it for this time. I'm Brian P. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that sub button, and until next time, stay up.